on the go, NBA, UFC, baseball, no matter the league, no matter the minute, MyBookie puts the action in your hands so you can turn any game day into a payday. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Now let's get back to the show.
So let me tie this back to what we talked about. Seeing all the hate, et cetera, what happened to Mencia, what would you do differently about Carl?
Nothing.
That's what I was thinking.
I wouldn't do a thing different. I took the hit. But it's like the hit wasn't bad because I was right, and eventually I knew they would realize I was right. And I would wish that he would realize I was right.
And, well, the hate I also felt...
Well, people don't realize you took a hit. I think a lot of people's history view is
Yes,
you
but
called
no.
out Mencia, and then you had the biggest podcast on the planet.
That's true also.
Yeah.
They don't know what you went through afterwards.
It wasn't bad.
What
it
was
was
it?
not bad.
Well, I
Bad things
actually don't know.
happened.
For comic standards, I think it is.
Well, I got banned from the Comedy Store. That was a real problem.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't Mitzi Shore's idea. The real problem was I was on the phone with Mitzi like more than an hour before they called me to tell me I was banned. So I was on the phone with Mitzi, and I told her, out of respect, what had happened. I said, Mitzi, I go, we are fucking tired of this guy stealing jokes. She's like, Carlos, are you sure he's stealing? I go, Mitzi, we have videos of it. He's a fucking thief. And so we had this conversation on the phone, and she goes, well, just keep away from him. So I told her that we're going to release this video. She goes, well, just keep away from him. I go, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And she goes, okay, you want to go up tonight? And I said, sure. What time do you want to put me up? She goes, 10:30. I go, thank you very much. I love you. That's the last time I talked to her.
Wow.
That's sad.
And then I got a call an hour later, and I realized, like, she was in a state where Mitzi Shore is, like, legitimately, if you looked at all of the people that are important in the development of comedy, she's the #1 most important person that wasn't a comic.
Why?
One.
Wait, why? Why do you think
Because she let the Comedy Store.
Mitzi Shore owned the Comedy Store.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
for
sorry.
people-
I'm sorry. Mitzi Shore is Pauly Shore's mom. She's like, she started the Comedy Store with her husband. They got divorced. She got the Comedy Store, and she ran the Comedy Store in a way where, like, she was a strong lady, and she had fucking strong ideas about what was good and what was bad, and she would tell you right to your face. She would tell you, I fucking hate that bit.
Did she
And
ever
we're
say
like,
that to you?
Shit, yes.
What'd she say?
I had this bit about Anna Nicole Smith and her husband. She fucking hated that bit because J. Howard Marshall, that dude who was like 150 years old.
Yeah, Biden.
I had this bit.
Genius.
He was older than Biden. He was Biden's dad. but she was responsible for the environment of the Comedy Store, where she just let the comedians express themselves the best way that they could and give them a home and set these standards. Like,
And
no
for those who
bullshit
don't know,
standards.
the Comedy Store, Pryor, Kinnison,
Bill Hicks.
so many legends.
David Letterman.
Worked out there.
Yeah, Eddie Griffin, Damon Wayans was there a lot. Martin Lawrence was there a lot. It was like Dice Clay. Like, so many people came out of that place, and it was chaos. And it didn't always work out perfectly, but she designed it in a way where she could create a place where these really fucked up people could come and perform. And she would call it her island of misfit toys. She knew what she was doing, man. And she's a completely unusual person.
Why?
Very few people just dedicate themselves to a thing like that and like have this idea of like what's the right way to do it, and they're right. She was right. She was right so often.
Yeah.
Like, someone would call and complain about Kinnison, and she would, I don't
Go
give
fuck
a
yourself.
fuck.
Yeah.
She didn't give a fuck. She didn't give a fuck.
So then how
the
is
place
she-
is packed every night. She did not give a fuck.
But how is she okay with Mencia then? Because this is why
She didn't know, and I also think she was having some legitimate health problems by then, unfortunately.
Yeah.
When I first met her, she was already in '94. She was already struggling a little, and then as time went on, it got worse. And I don't think, if people don't come to her and complain, I don't think she necessarily knows, unless she's watching every single set, who came up with this bit first.
Right.
She doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right? So if you just come down for one 20-minute set and you see someone kill and you go, oh my God, he's hilarious. If you had come 20 minutes before, you might have saw Paul Mooney do his version of it. Right? Yeah. And if that was the case, maybe then she would be able to go, hey, what the fuck? But like I said, even in the 90s, she was already struggling. She had I think it was a neurological disorder. And you know, it was hard for her. So I don't blame her, but she had ideas that didn't necessarily work. But you fucking never know what's gonna work. How many people did we started out with that were like open micers? That you
I
knew
think
were
about
funny?
that. I think about that.
You knew they were funny,
Yeah.
and they just fucking they fell apart on re-entry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about that. Like the
Yeah.
first friend I knew that there was a comic that stopped, and they were funny too, but they just didn't want to go through it.
Dude, there's a girl
it's a
that I
grind.
dated when I was 21. There's a girl I dated when we were both open micers together. She was funnier than me.
Get ready.
Like, she was so funny. She was hilarious. She was fucking hilarious. And I remember thinking, if I don't make it as a comedian, at least I fucked her. This lady's the next Roseanne. Like, she's so good. She was a killer.
And then what happened?
I don't know.
Stopped
man.
it.
I don't know. I lost track.
I mean, especially-
I lost touch with her.
Back
We
then-
stayed friends, but
I want to know her name.
yeah, I moved to New York, and when I don't want to say it. And when I moved to New York,
It just stopped.
yeah.
I mean, back then you had so few opportunities, and if you didn't get one, I imagine it would just wear you down because you're just toiling at that point.
Yeah.
Like this internet shit is so different.
It's so different. Well, I've been through both things,
Yeah.
and what it really makes me
30 seconds to show.
understand, like more than anything, is like how important it is to like share
Don't make any.
success and like get everybody out of that horrible period in the beginning where you don't know if you're going to make it, because the more people that you can get that are convinced that they could be professionals, the more you're going to get those dudes that we remember from the open mic days that didn't make it. I think about that girl all the time. I think about her. She was fucking funny, man. She was funny. She had a witty way of looking at things. And I'm like, she was 21. We were both 21. I'm like, what would have happened to her when she was 29? What about when she's 33? She might be a murderer right now. She might be straight up slaying on Netflix. Selling out arenas, just walking out there. People, she was that good. But for whatever reason, there's no, you know, back then it was dog eat dog, and everybody thought they were going to be the host of the Tonight Show.
Well, there was 2 shows.
Yeah.
And then maybe you get a half hour.
And then there was the sitcom game.
Yeah.
The sitcom game when Tim Allen got his show and Roseanne got her show and Seinfeld and Brett Butler. Then the whole game became get a deal to do a sitcom.
Yeah.
And craft an act
About the
that
sitcom.
seems like a pilot.
Yeah.
Like
That's crazy.
you would do an act that was like a pilot for a sitcom, and we all got intoxicated by the sitcom world.
Yeah, I don't know if he did it on. I mean, I love the show, but Ray Romano's. It seemed like looking back, it's like, oh, his whole comedy was.
Ray Romano was
And I
my
love his show.
character on News Radio, and he got fired.
No.
Wait, really?
Yes. Ray Romano was the original handyman on News Radio, and he got fired.
Why?
And Ray was a good friend of mine. I love, until this day, he's a good friend of mine. I love him.
great.
He's brilliant. And I opened for Ray at a bowling alley.
Yeah.
I think it's Jimmy's Comedy Alley. I think that's what it was called, in Queens.
Yeah.
Like way back in the day. And I remember sitting in the audience with my friend watching Ray Romano just straight murder. Going, God damn, he's good.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah.
And then a year later, we are in this situation where I have a development deal with NBC to do my own show, but then there's this other show that they've already shot a pilot for, but they're gonna fire this dude, and
Do you
I
know?
need to
He
go and
just-
read for it.
He just didn't test
I
well.
had no idea. I had no idea what
And he
happened.
never found out
But
either?
here's the good thing: they fired him and then hired another guy to do the pilot. So I was once removed. So I felt like I'm okay. It's already gone. I'm stealing it from this other dude who stole it from you, Ray.
He did okay, by the way.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, then like Kevin James and I were good friends, and he was good friends with Ray too. So we would all eat together, and like this was right when Ray was creating Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
And he was like sitting there with like scripts and shit and talking to us. That motherfucker was obsessed.
Good.
Like that show became amazing because that dude was dedicated. We're at Jerry's Famous Deli eating Reuben. And Ray's just going, script. We're running jokes and shit. I'm like, damn, this dude is fired up.
Yeah, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
The best stand-up comedic actor I've ever seen. Like,
Ray
as a
Romano?
comedic actor and stand-up primarily, he was a fucking great comedic actor.
And you know
don't
what's
see
just
that
as
often.
important? Really good dude.
Yeah.
What you expect is what you get.
Yeah.
Real solid, real cool dude.
Courier will be
I was at
born, but
I was
not
at the
forgotten.
cellar once, and he's just like the calmest, chillest guy.
right? Like not high energy, nothing crazy. And we're sitting at the back table, and we were talking about something. And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm from New York, but I went to school out in California. And I go, yeah, I went to UC Santa Barbara. And he goes, oh, yeah. Wild school. And I was like, yeah, it was a lot of parties. He goes, oh, no, my son went there during the school shooting. And his son was at the school. Do you remember when there was like a school shooting at UCSB?
No.
His son was at the school during that.
Wow.
There's so many school shootings now.
Yeah.
That
I didn't remember those.
I can't remember. I
Isn't
feel
that wild?
so embarrassed.
Why is that specific here? Have you thought about that?
No alpha brain here, huh?
In America, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem is that it is a great way to get a lot of attention and to do the most horrific thing to a society that you feel like has abandoned you. If you hate the world, one of the worst things you could do is kill kids.
Yeah.
So that's the scariest thing for all of us.
Yeah.
And when you have children, you'll have this feeling. It's like the world becomes a completely different place. And which is one of the things, like, I was thinking, one of the things that happened to me when I became a parent, and also just as I became older and I watched children grow and become older and wiser and figure things out, I realized we're all just babies that grew up. And I used to meet a person, I think, oh, this guy's an idiot. But now I look at someone, I literally, like, I look at you and I think of you as a baby. And I think of you going through your life and getting to who you are now. And it just instantaneously develops more empathy for people. Instantaneously.
Yeah.
It's like it's a paradigm shift, like the most profound psychedelic experience you could ever have.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize that this whole thing that we do with like teams or othering people or this, not you, all that stuff is just fear. It's a giant percentage of what we're doing when we're interacting with people poorly is just fear.
Yeah.
We're fearful that they're going to be cruel to us, so we want to be cruel first.
Yeah.
And there's like chest puffing. Most people just want to be loved.
I remember talking to my cousin who's a psychiatrist, and then I just started therapy, like whatever, and I was like, oh, are we basically all just, our personality is just adding up all our defense mechanisms? And he was like, yeah, that's basically, you're just a bunch of defense mechanisms into a human being.
Yeah, there's a lot of that because you're accustomed to, in terms of your DNA is accustomed to fighting off predators, fucking bears and big cats. That's our past. All human beings. We didn't get here instantaneously.
Yeah.
We got here through a long, bloody, horrific process where a lot of babies got eaten by wolves. That's why the Little Red Riding Hood, all that shit was about wolves. That's why it was about wolves, because wolves used to eat people. Do you know they stopped World War I because of wolves?
No.
Do you know there's a ceasefire? There was a ceasefire between the Russians and the Germans because so many of them were getting killed by wolves.
Nuts.
They decided to decided to get together and kill the wolves and then go back to killing each other.
No.
Yes.
I saw that picture of them playing soccer on Christmas.
The Christmas
They did that
truce.
too. Yeah.
How?
Because they were trapped. They were trapped in a crazy world. And the world's still crazy. It's just crazy with more information.
Is it possible to indoctrinate people with like love for country more now, you think? Like
Neuralink.
that's the scary thing,
That's
right?
the only way.
No, that's the scary thing about the Neuralink, right? If you can control something that's going on in someone's brain,
Yeah.
I don't need the news. I don't need influencers on Joe Rogan's
If you can
podcast.
control it. But if it's something that can't be controlled,
Well, how do they prove that?
I don't know.
Would you let them do it to you?
Well, they're controlling things already. If you look at the world like a system, and you looked at the amount of resources and money that's pumped into controlling specific narratives, they're already controlling things.
But they're doing it because we choose to opt into our phone.
Yeah, but you're not. It's not negotiable.
Like what?
You're not going to stop using your phone.
No, I'm gonna keep using my phone, but at least I can be like, oh, you're showing this because if I see an ad for fucking toaster ovens, maybe we spoke about toaster ovens yesterday and now I see the ad. But if you don't even have to convince me, at least there's one layer. But if you're already in here and you make me think I want to vote that way, you don't think that that's a little bit...
But how are you doing that? How are you making someone think that they're going to vote a certain way?
If you can make my dad have memory again, if you can make, and anybody do anything, you can make them think anything you want.
I think there's a real problem with narratives, right? There's a real problem with pushing narratives and not letting people really decide what's going on objectively. But I don't I don't know if any one person is ever going to have control of that. I think there's like this wave thing that happens back and forth. It's like Twitter comes and everything goes left, and who knows if people abandon that and go right.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's just like this weird, wild sort of wrestling match of human beings trying to figure out what the fuck to do.
Yeah,
with life.
society is just a bunch of overcorrections each way, it seems like.
There's a lot of that, yeah. There's a lot of that, yeah. And a lot of that is done, unfortunately, because of a lack of honesty. If more people were honest, and we put like a lot of value in honesty and a lot of honor in it, that I think you could have like better conversations, and then we would find out why people are behaving the way they're behaving. But right now, there's like a lot of like, I want my team to win, so I'll bullshit about stuff.
Yes.
The problem with that is like my friend Johnny, who used to compliment people that he didn't even like. Like you got to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You got to be like, that guy's a fucking dick. But you know what he does?
Yeah.
This is what he does. Like he's an asshole, but his father is. They make the best fucking pizza. I hate the dude, but I would go to his place. He would tell you shit like that. But it was fun.
That's what I love about stand-up.
Yeah.
Is that like even the guys that were assholes couldn't be denied as funny.
Oh no. Yeah,
Like
no, he's not.
there was a guy. Do you ever know Todd Lynn? I think he's
Oh, yeah.
passed.
You know he's pissed.
He is passed, right? Yeah. So Todd Lynn like was a fucking hilarious. I didn't know for sure, but I know he had a
Been
baby
dead.
arm. He had a baby arm.
Been dead, yo.
But
you
I think-
probably performed at one of his fundraisers.
Have I?
I performed at his fundraiser.
Shouts to Todd Lynn and his family.
I performed at his fundraiser. Mark Theobald is hosting. Mark's so funny.
Shout out to Mark.
And this is one of his good friends. And Mark is passing around the bucket. This is how big of a dick Todd Lynn was. Mark is passing around the bucket for people to donate money. He's like, if you knew Todd, he wasn't necessarily the nicest guy. As he's asking for money.
But this motherfucker was so goddamn funny,
Really?
bro.
Oh, he's a monster, dude.
Bro.
Shit on me for bombing in front of him and then just crushed for
And he had a
40 minutes.
baby arm.
Yeah.
He had like a
Bang.
baby arm, like like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
And he was still talking that shit. It was so funny, but everybody's doing an asshole. And there's a lot of people like this. Like Patrice is the greatest I've ever seen, my favorite. But a lot of people would be like, yo, Patrice was kind of an asshole. But you couldn't deny him.
Patrice was an asshole to everybody.
That's facts.
He was always nice to me.
Yeah, because he thought you were a real one, bro.
He's nice. Patrice was nice. He was just, you had to be able to
Don't
take a
bullshit
fucking
him.
joke. You had to be able to take a joke. You had to be able to
destroy
take it
you
right
ever?
on the chin and laugh right back.
Wow, what do you say, Joe?
Oh, he was always funny. Always. He was just always funny about everything. Patrice had a way of looking at things where we would all talk and they would wait for Patrice's point. He's one of those guys. If you talked to Patrice and hung out with him, I hung out with him in Vegas once. We were all at the backstage at one of those Opie and Anthony shows. He was just such a. I remember hanging out with him going, man, I wish I lived closer to him.
Yep. Yep.
He was that guy, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
But luckily I had Joey Diaz.
Joey's your
the
guy.
West Coast Patrice.
Yeah.
He was very much like that. Joey Diaz was very much like that. Like we would all line up the back of the room and Joey Diaz was lighted on fire. And all the people I've ever seen kill, I've never seen anybody hit Joey Diaz RPMs. He would have these bits that they were so funny that you couldn't. He could say things you weren't allowed to say.
Yeah.
Because he was like a human cartoon. You weren't even sure if he was real.
Yep. Like, is this guy white? Is he Spanish?
His timing was fucking perfect. And he would nail punchlines and turn beat red, and people would be falling out of their seats.
Yeah.
There's multiple times I've been in that original room where I go, God, I wish we were filming this.
Yeah.
I wish we were filming this because I don't think anybody's gonna understand if they're not here right now.
You know, Fahim just put out his special.
Yeah.
And shouts to Fahim. Go check out Hat Trick. But that's that idea for the special. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see Joey do that too. And because Joey, for me, I was like, you have to understand him within the space of the store.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, there's something magical about it. And I didn't understand it until I went out there and I saw him for the first time. You had been telling me a lot about him, and I remember just sitting and watching, and it was, it was special, man.
I'm working with Joey in Atlantic City this weekend for the first time in years.
God
I haven't been on stage with him in like 2
God
years.
bless.
I gotta watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told him, like, whatever you want to do. What do I have to do to fucking get you back in there? I'm like, dude.
Is this his first time back on stage?
No, he's been on stage a bunch of times.
Okay, good.
He did a bunch of shows with Brian Callen, and he's tuned up. He's ready to rock. I'm so excited. I can't believe we got him back.
Nah. Yeah, Joey's a fucking beast.
He was like, you have like specific roles in like these communities, you know? In the Comedy Store community, Joey Diaz was just pure chaos. Who just, you would drop him in, and like during like the drug Joey days, like during the early days when he was like a straight up criminal, he reminded me so much of my friend Johnny. So much.
Johnny, who's
Johnny
Pool
was-
Hustler.
The pool hustler.
the pool hustler. Yeah.
Joey was like just like him.
Yeah.
Like a wild dude from the streets, but like a good dude.
Yeah.
Like I knew he was a good solid dude. And we were friends like instantly. And he would come to the news radio set, and he was a gorilla back then. I mean, he was like, you know, way thinner and like built like. Don't you do it?
Yeah.
He was wearing a leather jacket, built like a football player. And all those NBC studio executives would get mad because he was eating all of their
Snacks. Okay.
Let the man
They're
tell
like,
his
who
story.
is
Jesus.
Christ, you fucking child, you children. I would laugh too. I would laugh too.
So wait a minute, he would just show up to set just to see.
I would come with him. I would bring him with
But
me.
he wasn't on the show. He was just
No,
hanging
he's my
out.
boy.
Get off track, Andrew.
This is like 1996.
Yeah.
You know, we were both like, you know, I was probably like 28, and Joey was like a little older than me. And Joey had just got to LA straight from prison.
Wait, did he?
He was, yeah, he's always in and out of jail. I think he was like running from something in Seattle. He had to come back to LA. Like there's a warrant out for him for the longest time. He couldn't get a passport to go places because all the he kidnapped a drug dealer with a machine gun.
Fire.
Wow.
No, Joey Diaz did real time. Joey Diaz is, but he's a uniquely beautiful soul. And even though I knew all that shit that he did real time and everything, I'm like, I know what you are. I know what you are. You're a great guy who just had a crazy life.
You collect these guys.
These guys are valuable. They're everything. They're
Yeah.
life, man. Those are Sam Kinnisons. Those are the Richard Pryors.
But why do you think?
Because they don't fit in, and that's how you see what it is for real. Like if you're not a part of it, you see what it is for real.
Because you don't have to operate
You're not
based on the
operating
part
in
of
that
it.
system.
Yeah.
Joey
yeah,
Diaz found his mother dead on the floor when he was on acid.
No, that's what it
when
is.
he was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah,
when you're a part of a community,
when
you
he
gotta-
tells that
yeah,
story,
yeah.
your fucking your goosebumps just stand up. You're like, what?
Yeah.
So it's like those type of people from that angst and that unusual view of the world.
Have to find themselves.
Yes.
And sometimes themselves is a little outside of the norm. It's outside of the group.
They find
Yeah.
it through the most potent form of entertainment.
Yeah.
All of our great rock stars, all of our great comics, all of our great hip hop artists, all of them come from crazy backgrounds. Not all of them, obviously. That's a big generalization. But I'm trying to make my point.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think that
You don't get it in Joey Diaz in a suburb.
Yeah,
They don't-
but
they don't
more,
turn out
it's
like
like
that.
there's a freedom to being outside if you're willing to harness
Yes.
it, and the freedom is you get to actually find who you are.
Well, the reality is there's no real outside. Like people feel like they're outside, but so many people feel like they're outside. There's a lot of people. And when you go to a comedy club, all the other people also feel like they don't get it. They laugh at your point. They go, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if even if what you're saying is wrong, but it's funny. It's like that's where it's like we're fucking with the wiring. One of my favorite bits that you do is that bit you do about countries where they treat their women terribly.
Got the
But
best food, boy.
the best food. You ever eat Canadian food? That bit is so good. Because like you look, if you were a terrible person, you wanted to misrepresent who you are,
Yeah.
you would write that. Oh, this is just saying that women belong in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Ooh! That's not what they're saying.
No.
That's not what you're saying. You're saying something funny. It's a funny thing to say.
I did this talk like Noam from the Comedy Cellar. Do you know Noam?
Yeah.
You would love Noam. Like you
I know
got.
Noam.
Okay, good.
I worked at his club way back.
I know, but he's like he's an interesting guy.
No,
like,
Andrew should connect you with Noam. I don't think he knows him.
I can get you an audition at the Comedy Cellar. Like that
could be good for you, dude.
I
That
got
could be
you.
good.
Yeah. No, but
Moving on up. Shout out to all these comedy club owners,
But
man. Without them.
he had an interesting conversation. He had this like talk where there were these like intellectual dudes. This guy named Glenn Lowry. Do you know?
Yeah,
Glenn
sure.
Yeah. So him and a few other dudes, and and they had some comics on stage, and we were just talking about, you know, random things and comedy and political correctness and culture, etc. And there was just like a moment on stage where I was talking like, we should never be together. Like, we don't have to have these conversations because you guys say what's right and we say what's funny. And I think what happens is the people that say what's right expect the people that say what's funny to be right. And that's where our jokes become more than jokes and where we get in trouble. If we're just out here just making jokes and talking shit and just being funny with no stakes, that's what, and then people look at us and they're like, oh no, these are the next intellectuals. They are going to tell us how to think. That's when we can't make the craziest jokes.
Well, one of the arguments is that, like, if you say crazy things in the name of being funny, then other people that are not as smart as you will say those things and they'll be hurtful. They'll feel like they have license to say those things.
Maybe.
I had a drag queen tell me that after a show.
Maybe.
It was very intimidating. She's wearing kiss boots. But it's one of those things, it's like, I don't know if you're responsible for the dumbest people in your audience.
You're not.
I don't know how that works.
You're not.
And I feel like at a certain point in time, we have to agree that most people love comedy. If you don't love comedy, you have to opt out of this conversation. So if you love comedy, you must agree that a lot of what people say, they don't mean. They just think it's a funny thing to say. Like, this is an art form. Just like Quentin Tarantino is not really killing women when he's making Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
This is what we used to say about
There's no
violent
dead
movies.
women involved in the production of that movie.
Yeah, the violent movies, violent rap,
Yes.
Eminem getting
All
all
those
That's
things.
just moved toward comedy. It'll move on.
But it's
eventually.
also like, the problem is it seems like you're just talking. It seems like it's not like something
Right.
you've created, that you've manipulated language in order to get a surprise result that makes people go, bah!
Yeah.
And it seems like your statements, because they sound just like everybody else when they talk.
Yes. But I also think it's because that's how we feel, and we can have wrong feelings. And I think that's the biggest difference.
What's wrong, though? If you feel it,
No, I mean,
like, you don't have to
somebody might
like
cut
it.
you off in traffic, and you might think the worst possible thing for that car, and then 3 seconds later you go, it was just upset in the moment. Don't people like get out of? Don't people like?
Oh, yeah.
They
No
don't get
rage.
life in jail for murdering somebody because they had moments of rage.
You know what that's from?
Temporary insanity.
Temporary insanity.
You know what that
That's
road
what
rage
comedy
shit
is.
from?
Temporary insanity. If this is my crazy thought in the moment, and then I'm gonna say it again, and it's gonna be funny, but I don't feel that way anymore. Simple as that.
What are you saying?
Comedy's temporary insanity. My funniest moment, my funniest thought, and my knee-jerk reaction to something, and I'm gonna craft it and add words and add ideas and wrap myself around it.
No.
What?
Yeah, like,
Marijuana might not be for you.
What you say right
We
now?
went.
Nope.
You were trying to defend some insufferable position.
Nope.
Yo, the joke about the woman food thing.
He didn't say.
I don't think you should. I don't think you should
He
actually
didn't say
treat.
it was a wrong position. He said it was insufferable.
No, that's a great word.
It's a very
You
specific
can
word.
throw people off your trail. And it's like covering your tracks with
Insufferable
leaves.
means
crafty.
it
It's
sucks.
crafty.
It doesn't mean it's wrong.
It's a good word.
It means it's shitty.
It's a solid word if you're trying to be deceptive. If you know trying to obfuscate, whatever.
Obfuscate. Hey, somebody got a high score on his SATs.
Let's go, bro.
Yeah. Fuck it. Yeah, fuck it, dude. Let's just make the jokes. Who gives a fuck what anybody says about it? If they want to write think pieces, who gives a fuck?
Well, the
Mo
thing
Farah
is,
makes
it's
a
like they
hilarious sketch.
represent a valid group of humans who have their opinions. But the problem is if they try to impose those opinions on people who have different opinions. So there's some people who love shit-talking comedy.
Yes.
That's what we do.
Yes.
All right? If you want to pretend that everything I have to say I always mean, I'm checking out. I'm not interested in doing that.
Yeah.
I want to talk the same way I talk around my friends.
Yeah.
I want to talk the same way I talk around comics.
Yeah.
We know we're all having fun and talking shit. And I want to do that to the moment they say, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan, hey, what's up? I want to talk to those people like I talk to my best friends. I want to develop bits that are as funny as I can make them. And I don't mean all the things I'm saying, but I'm gonna hit you with the best shit I have.
Funny is in the outcast. Whether that's like the person on a TV show that's weird, or the thought that's a thought that should get you outcasted on stage.
Like Kinnison.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate outcast. Right? Wearing a beret and a trench coat.
Yelling at you.
Screaming, used to be a preacher. What the fuck happened to this guy?
Yeah.
Ultimate outcast.
Right.
What fucking class of people does he fit into? He's out of the Christians. He's gone. Like, where's he fitting in? Hollywood? He's like 5'4". He's fat as fuck. He wears a beret.
Yeah.
He's got a trench coat on. But when that dude would get on stage, you'd be like, whoa, what is this, a new kind of comedy? What the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And all the people that have ever like completely ignited a completely different style of comedy, he's my number one.
Really?
Yeah, man, because out of nowhere, he's doing this wild, screaming, yelling, like passionate preacher comedy.
Yeah.
He was doing a fucking tent revival preacher comedy.
Right.
That's what he did.
He was one
He
of
used to be
Rock's favorites, which kind of makes sense.
Dude.
Because they're both essentially preaching.
Yes, yes. But Rock, he's one of Rock's favorites because Rock saw him in like the 86, 88 era. I saw him in 88. I got to saw him. 88 he was on the slide. And this is as a lifelong diehard Sam Kinison fan. I'm not saying this in any disrespect. I think he's one of the greatest of all time. But I think you have to judge comics as like the highest RPMs that they achieve. Just the same way you have to judge fighters. Like people say, who's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time in boxing? I say Mike Tyson. Because Mike Tyson during his day was a fucking destroyer.
Yeah.
And maybe it only lasted a few years, but he's the guy who comes to mind for me because I grew up during the era where Mike Tyson was the executioner.
Yep.
So I feel like that about like almost everything. Like almost everything has to be judged by the eras in which it happened. Don't you think that is the case?
Yeah.
And for my money, Sam Kinison during that era was just a fucking new thing. Nobody had seen anything like that. There's this guy with a fucking trench coat and a beret, and he's screaming about going to hell and how Satan's gonna be like, oh, you've been married? Oh, this is normal to you. We'll show you the place where we torture souls.
Yeah.
You know, like he had this thing where he would scream at the audience.
Yeah.
I've been married twice. Hell would be like Club Med. He was this fat guy screaming. Hell would be like Club Med.
Med,
I've been married twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like no one had seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And he had like knowledge of the Bible.
That's a yeah.
He would do like biblical knowledge in the middle of bits.
It's like if Bill Hicks was funny.
Oh my God! Shut your mouth. I saw Bill Hicks murder.
Really?
Murder.
You
I
the
saw
whole
Bill
audience
Hicks bomb
commit
too.
suicide
I
because they
saw
got
him
the
bomb.
45 minutes of his set.
You don't like Bill Hicks?
I hate that guy. dude.
Really?
Maybe I hate his fans, but like people that still walk around like Bill Hicks was the greatest. It's like, come on, bro.
I'll tell you
Stop
what.
pretending you like
Listen
this
to
in
me, man.
2020.
There was a fucking green room at the Punchline in Atlanta, and it had everyone graffitied all over the walls. And in one part it said, "Quit trying to be Hicks."
Yeah, he had.
And it's true because he made you feel like you were doing something stupid. You were so jealous of him, and so I was lucky. I got a chance to see him when I was an open micer. So I was just starting out, and I saw him twice. And one time he murdered, and one time he bombed. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing. And me and Greg Fitzsimmons and a couple other comics, I don't think are doing it anymore. We're on the back of Nick's Comedy Stop, and he went on after a dude who was a very regionally funny, like middle act, very obvious premises, but did a good job. Had a good set. And Bill Hicks ate cock. He ate cock for the majority of his set, and people were just getting up and leaving. And while he was doing this bit about, it was some bit about someone taking a shit. So he's in the middle of taking a shit. I forget exactly. I don't want to butcher it. In the middle of taking a shit, he's like, He looks up. He goes, "This usually clears a room." and people are like leaving in droves. It's like a 300-person room. By the end of it, there's maybe 50 people and maybe 10 comedians. We're fucking crying, laughing. And he never looked phased. He never looked phased. And we were howling. And we weren't howling ironically. We were howling because the shit was funny. It was just so dark. It was so crazy. It was like some of his stuff was so funny. It was different than any other kind of comedy. So it was like comedy from a dude who recently did mushrooms and was reevaluating everything. And that was like pretty much what was actually going on with Bill. And then he quit doing drugs and he just dedicated himself to like getting like messages out in comedy. And the problem is back then, no one had a fucking podcast, man. So you had to be funny, and if you had something that you felt like people needed to know about it, you had to figure out how to put that into comedy. It's too complicated. It makes people preachy.
That's okay. That's what I heard. Then.
Yeah.
So I do. In
But
fact,
doesn't that happen to comics as they get better, as they get more famous, as they get more successful? They become more preachy.
Watch Louis C.K. He's not preachy.
Yeah, Louis is
Dave Chappelle is not preachy. Dave Chappelle is expressive. He wants you to know exactly how he feels about things. But he's the biggest comic alive. He's not preachy.
Yeah, I think a bit.
I hate that noise.
What do you
He's
think?
trying to express himself in the most honest and compassionate way possible. He's a beautiful person. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Like, genuinely always nice.
Yeah.
Very rarely angry at any. Even if he's mad at someone's trying to ruin his career, he'll have a joke or two about it. And they'll be like, bah! And then everyone's laughing. Have you seen Jamie Foxx's?
So
Oh,
good.
it's so good.
So good.
We talked about this. Is Jamie the most talented entertainer?
Maybe ever. Maybe
ever.
Maybe
Like,
ever.
Yeah.
Impressions.
Yeah.
Singing. He can play the
Athletic.
piano.
Yes.
Wait, I didn't know.
Dude, he played
that's right.
high
He
school
played ball.
quarterback.
You were
Yes.
saying
And
that's right.
yes.
That's right.
No,
Yeah,
Jamie
that's right.
Foxx can do anything. He's one of those people that can literally do anything.
Yeah, here's the.
You want to run it back?
Yeah, run it back because it's so preposterous.
Ran up on stage. I was incensed.
I was incensed.
Pow, nigga.
Come on.
Thank you for Jamie Foxx. If you're ever in trouble, Jamie Foxx, show up with a sheriff hat. And all the other comedians just stood there. They're waiting on me to die. So they can take over.
Even the
I see Chris
physicality.
Rock.
Everything.
I see you, Chris Rock. I mean, that's if you blindfolded me, I'd go, oh, that's Dave Chappelle. What are you talking
Yeah. Now
about? Am I
Dave's just-
stupid?
Yeah, Dave's
Who's
just
that?
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. It's preposterous.
Yeah, I want the Jamie Foxx documentary. He's just done everything. Like, his life is so fascinating.
You know what? I think his work speaks for itself.
What do you mean?
I mean, I don't need a documentary.
Oh,
But
I do.
that dude,
I'm
I need that
25.
dude. I don't want to interrupt. Keep going. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. I want to see how he plays Mike Tyson. He's gonna play Mike Tyson.
Oh, that's great.
I bet it's gonna be phenomenal.
Yeah.
He does an amazing Mike Tyson impression.
Yeah.
And he also is of that age who grew up during the time when Mike Tyson was the dominator.
Yeah.
So he knows what that really was like. It's like you're not recreating that. We experienced that.
Yeah.
You know?
Why do you think
Mike Tyson fought Bruce Seldon. Bruce Seldon looked like a comic book superhero, and you could see the fear in his eyes when he fought Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson just looking at you like there is not a chance in the world that you're gonna survive.
Oh, hells yeah. We got
Here we go.
pizza, bro.
Oh, Dove.
What do we got?
What a
I
legend,
gotta
bro.
pee again. It
May I
looks
have
like a
one,
lot of fun
Alex?
if you hate your body.
Come on, son.
Like really?
Before, take this. Yeah, it's not fun if you're a badass.
I love it. Don't get me wrong. I wish I could have some.
No, I love my body.
I would if I was hungry
I'll take
and I
a
didn't
slice.
have dinner reservations.
me get a
I
plate?
would fucking eat the shit out of that pizza.
Joe, we gotta wrap this up, bro.
Please let us. It's an honor to be here in the new studio.
Thank you so much for all
Yeah.
this
Thank
work.
you, man.
My pleasure.
People need to know you're a great guy.
Damn it.
They know you're great, but I don't think they know how great you are. I think it's very, very rare that people in your position are this benevolent. And I think that you set a tone that the rest of us try to follow.
Well, that's so nice of you, but I think it's good for everybody.
I know you think it's good for everybody, but I think that, like, if the guy on top is doing it and you don't do it, you're a piece of shit.
Right.
And I think that most people on top don't do it, and that's how they get to the top. And I think that's what was so profound about what happened with you is that everybody underneath you was like, no, I gotta look out for my boys. I gotta put them on.
Gotta
I
pay
gotta
it
help
forward.
them build their thing. Exactly.
Yeah,
And,
they all took the same sort of strategy.
Yes. Yes.
It was just the right path. It was just like I saw that path. You know, it was just the right path. It's not like a big deal in terms of what it really is what we should have been doing all along. But we were all like scratching and clawing to try to get Hollywood gigs. You know, and I think once the internet came along, it gave comedians this completely new network of everybody became an asset, not just like a competitor. But competitor is good. Like if you train at a jiu-jitsu gym, you want to train at a place that has black belts because you want to be able to get to a really high level and you want to know if your stuff is bullshit, right? So if you pull something off and you can pull it off on a purple belt, but the black belt keeps fucking it up, that might be bullshit.
Yep.
And you don't find that out. Like the same way with comedy. Comedy doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
If you go to a place that doesn't have a comedy community, you never find the best comic in the world. They just, I don't want to say never, but it's super rare if that's ever happened. I don't think it ever has. It's a fucking new art form, right? We are really clearly indebted to each other.
Yep.
And the only way to recognize that is to reach out to each other and to say it. And to just like express. I try to express it all the time when I'm in my green room before my shows. I'm like, we are so lucky. We're so lucky we could do this. This is the craziest thing in the world.
Says it all the time.
Beautiful. Gratitude is, it sounds like wooden beads and crystals, but it's fucking real.
Yeah.
That shit's real. Like, gratitude is real. It's like you're putting an energy out there that makes people feel good, and it makes people want to do the same.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
I just don't think we realize that until you.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. I think you made people, I think you guilted people into liking something. Like, I think you were doing it, so if somebody else didn't do it that was under you that maybe put them on, or somebody else was trying to emulate you, they're going, all right, well, Joe's doing it, I gotta also do this. And then when somebody starts to do it, it's like the altruism kick in. There's a dopamine release for altruism. You help someone out, you start to feel good, and then you do that, and you're like, oh my God, I really enjoy doing this.
That's the thing that people need to realize. Like, being nice is great. Feels good. Feels good to everybody. When you make people feel good, you feel good too.
Yeah.
You know, it's good for all parties involved. It's not a selfish, one-way endeavor if someone gets success. It should be good for you too. You should be happy for them, and then they're happier. Like, you're happy and everyone's happy, and we can all like sort of like go through this weird thing together. Because we don't know what this is. You know, every day you wake up and you try to pretend like all of it makes sense, but you fucking shut your brain off every night and you go black for like 8 hours. You're gone in another dimension, and then you wake up in the morning and pretend that any of that shit makes any sense. All of it. We're so accustomed to going unconscious.
Yeah.
Literally having dreams. I had a dream that I was spearfishing in a fucking tunnel that was in a cave where there was Mayan artifacts. What the fuck is that? What is that? But it was vivid. In the dream, it was vivid. It was like I could see the paint and the gold and red paint on these artifacts. I was like, this is wild. We're in a cave system. Spearfishing. Wake up. Nope. Back in Texas.
And then just go about your day.
Yeah,
like it didn't
back in my day, like I wasn't just living in another world.
Yeah.
And we're all going through this. This is craziness.
Yeah.
Are the aliens real or not?
Tell me, bro.
I don't know.
We're gonna find out, though.
You know the first time we ever hung out? This is after we did the podcast.
Yeah, tell them.
We went out to dinner.
I don't think anybody knows about this.
They might not. You tell me, hey, what are you doing for dinner tonight after I do the pod? And I'm like, well, shit, I don't have any plans on in LA. He goes, well, come to dinner with me at the, what is it, the all-you-can-eat Brazilian restaurant? What's it called?
Fogo de Chao.
Fogo de Chao. He goes, come to Fogo de Chao. And when you type it, I don't even know what food we're eating. I gotta Google it, right? And it's like, okay, it's a Brazilian restaurant. So we go, and you're like, we're gonna come with Bob. I go, okay, cool. And we go with Bob Lazar. This is the guy who was working on the UFOs.
Yeah, and I explained to you who he was because I wanted you to get a read on him. Yeah. Because I wanted you to decide whether or not you thought he was bullshit. This is a guy that was allegedly, according to him, he back-engineered alien spacecraft at Area S4. Mm-hmm. It was a guy who worked for Lockheed Martin, and he claims that he worked on these UFOs. And we all went out to dinner.
Fogo de Chao.
And we're sitting there, and Andrew and I are cutting meat and eating and just talking.
I got my green light on. They keep coming around.
This guy.
Joe's like, put the fucking red light on. You had enough steak, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know the rules of Fogo de Chao yet.
You get a green card. It's the best fucking place ever if you love meat. You have a green card on one side and it's red on the other side. And so when you want to keep that food rolling, you keep that green up. Yeah. But Andrew's, it's like fucking sausages and coming. He's taking chicken legs. Yeah. And I go, you got to flip it over if you got to tap out. They'll give you a break. Yeah. So you flip it over. It's a good system. So we're all sitting there eating, and Bob Lazar is detailing to us shit that he couldn't even talk about on the podcast.
Wow.
And explaining like what they were trying.
Begrudgingly, by the way.
Begrudgingly.
And that's what kind of convinced me. He was like, I don't care to argue about this or debate about this. Like, if you don't believe me, it's fine. I don't need to be here. Like, I don't even care.
Yeah.
Remember he kept saying that?
Yeah.
And then he was like, this is what I experienced.
You gotta care a little bit. You dedicate your whole life to that shit.
No, he didn't dedicate his life. Like he was an engineer.
He was
right?
only there for a short period of time, and here's where it gets wild. Want to hear the whole story?
Yeah.
He had top secret clearance because he has to work on these crafts, allegedly, according to him. But because of that, they had to tap into his phones. They had to monitor all of his discussions. Like if he's selling information to the Russians, they got to. Okay. So during that time period, his wife is having an affair, and they kill his top secret clearance and suspend him during this time period, and with no explanation, because they think he'll be emotionally unstable,
Wow.
and you can't have a guy like that working on fucking UFOs. So they don't tell him, though. They don't tell him his wife is cheating on him. So he's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and he brings friends out into the mountains to view the launches of these UFOs, because they're on a very specific schedule, and he knows the schedule. So he takes these people out deep into the Nevada desert, which is now the area that he took people to. You can't even go there anymore. It's now off limits. But at the time, you can go there, and he was watching with his friends. They were filming these fucking things flying around in like these preposterous ways that no airplane could fly.
Did you see any of the videos?
I've seen it, but you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Like you're looking at lights. Like it could be anything.
That
It
was
could
the
be a
Elon thing. I think. Elon said some shit like, "Why don't they have better camera footage of aliens?"
Yeah.
Like
But they
everything.
do. He's not totally correct. The FLIR footage that they have from the Commander David Fravor had one of the most impactful UFO video encounters that's ever happened. It was off the coast of San Diego, and they found this thing that moved from 50,000 feet above sea level to 50 in less than a second. They don't know what it is. They have no idea what it was. But it was actively monitoring them because it blocked all of their tracking devices, which is technically an act of war. And then just fucking just took off, gone, and went back to their cat point, which is the place where they had like a designated spot where they're supposed to meet up during this mission. Because what they're doing with this mission is it's a training mission, and they had a dedicated, and that fucking UFO went to that spot. It's like, I know where you're going, bitch. And then took off again and gone. And then when they relayed this to the Nimitz, he was explaining how the people that were working there were like, we see these things like every couple of weeks. We have no idea what the fuck it is. We don't know what.
So you're 100% convinced UFOs?
I'm not, because it could be a drone that they don't tell those people about. It could be something that the government's working on. It could be
a different government or something.
most likely us. See, the thing about communism is like like the way they do it over there is like /communism /capitalism. Maybe that works, but a lot of what they do is they steal a lot of intellectual property from the United States. It's one of the problems. There's not a problem with the United States stealing intellectual property from China, as far as I know. It doesn't make the news, but they banned Huawei. The reason why they banned Huawei
the
is
cell
'cause
phone company, right?
the company that they make modems as well. They make many things, but they found like enough of an indication that they're suspicious. There's some back doors in order to get data. So if you're using like Huawei devices and you have some like super secure network that's developing nuclear weapons or whatever the fuck you're doing, they would get all that data. And there's like, hey,
Chill the fuck out.
hey. You know, we're in this weird time where we're only like a decade or so away from nothing being a secret, ever.
What do you mean?
There will be no more secrets. You'll be able to read minds. You're coming to a place where language is probably going to be universal, and you're going to be able to communicate with people that are nowhere near you using the power of your thoughts.
This is
Many of these technologies they're developing. If you had to think about where it's going to go, that's where it's going to go.
That's one guy I talked to. He said that's the end point of AI. That's where it's all headed. We're all in one conscious.
Well, it might be. You gave me a broken glass, you cocksuckers. I almost caught myself. I would have died.
Wow.
If you, please,
The Russian.
please.
It was the you drink out of this end.
I drink out of that end.
There you go.
I drink out of right this part. What were we just talking about?
The Russians.
Group consciousness.
No,
collective
group
Consciousness and singularity.
What they're looking for. Don't worry about all that. Don't worry about all that, bro.
Yo, half of it missed
What's the problem, bro?
It's just water.
Andrew's fingers and
I want to state for the record that most of this podcast is nonsense.
Yeah.
I would say 100%.
Yeah, it's 100%.
We like to be safe and just go 100%.
100%
it's all
nonsense.
comedy.
If asked, I stand by none of my claims.
No, this is all scripted. This is a scripted podcast, and this is for your.
This is a parody.
Exactly. Okay, but with the
Of 5 dudes drunk.
UFO shit, right?
They're out there.
They're out there, bro. Say it. You believe it.
No, the thing is, I don't believe it because I don't know for sure. But if I had to guess, I would have to say most likely they're out there because there's not enough options. Like, if you had to think that this is the most unique circumstance ever in the history of the universe, the problem with that is the universe is too big.
Yeah.
So it's so big that everything that's ever existed, including everything that's ever happened on Earth in the exact same order, has happened an infinite number of times. Like, you have to understand what infinity means. It's too big for anybody to understand. So are there aliens? Of course. There's not just aliens out there. You're out there. You're not just out there once. You're out there an impossible number of times, and you're doing life all kinds of different ways.
Yeah.
The number of people that live exactly the same as you have, with every pause, every mistake, every success, all of it is exactly the same. It's infinite. That's how big the universe is.
Then there's also one that's the opposite.
Yeah,
It's everything.
failures, disgrace, everything, falling apart, murder, suicide, all of it. Probably every single iteration of human beings.
Vegan you out there, Joe. And that motherfucker still
That's where
living
you
off.
cross the line.
Yeah, I just wonder, man.
If you watched a moose stomp a person to death, you think you could eat that moose?
Joe, I'll suck the moose's dick and I'm good.